Alright, hey guys, here we are. We're going to make a ball starter today for the percussion cap muzzle loader. What a ball starter is basically a tool that gets your ball into the muzzle before you push it down with your ramrod. And what I've got right here are two pieces of stainless steel rod that I've already cut to my length. I'm going to insert one in on this end. It's going to go in about yay deep. And this one's going to go in on the side. So you kind of have like a T-tool. And the reason for that is the short end is to get your ball started in the muzzle at first, and then you use your longer one to get it in deeper, and then you can use the ramrod to push the ball all the way down there. If you were to use just the ramrod and not this tool, it probably still works. It's just a lot harder. You've got this big long rod that's in the way, and it might want to flex or bend when you're trying to get that ball started. This tool will save you from all that. So I've got 5-minute epoxy. It's what we're going to use as our adhesive to connect the metal to the wood, along with a drill that I've got marked out for my short stub. As you can see, it's going to go in yay deep with that much nub sticking out. That's probably, I would say, about half an inch. Half an inch should be enough for my starter, and then I'm going to have about close to 4 inches to push the bullet or the ball further down, and then you're going to use your ramrod to stick it all the way in. So it's a really simple thing to do. To buy one, I mean, it's probably what $10 to buy one. To make one, it's cost me about $3 in parts. It's probably this metal is about $3 worth of stainless steel. I paid $10 for the full length, and I barely even used a quarter of what I had. So that's the materials. This here is just wild cherry. We got a bunch of cherry trees growing around here, so I cut this piece off and dried it out and sanded it. I've got a little bit of a split in this side, so I think when I drill my hole, I'll drill in on this side, use the strong side, and then I'm going to coat this with epoxy anyway when we're done, so it's going to have a nice little shellac finish. But also it's going to be sealed and weather tight. This wood will not rot. So I guess we'll get on to drilling. When my battery is charged, we will go ahead and start. We are ready to start. So I'm going to take that. That's where that little split was that I told you about. I'm going to drill on this side of that. Basically hold this, and I might need to do a pilot and then work ourselves bigger. Yeah, I'm going to go with a pilot because I'm going to have trouble drilling this. It's a little bit too fat. There we go. We'll start off with this, about half its width, and then we'll go to bigger. Alright. It's probably more than deep enough. And now we'll go to the big one. Okay, so I've gone about that deep. Now we're going to need to ream it out a little bit. So our metal fits, because we are a tiny little bit tight, and that was planned deliberately. The reason for that was so we get a tight fit. This is where you drift this in, like so. So what we're going to do before, we're just making sure it fits. I got a little bit more reaming to do. But when we get this in, then we're going to line it with some epoxy and then drift it in there for good. And that'll be in there permanently. Now I just realized something. When I drill my second hole, I'm going to want this over here a little bit, because otherwise I'm going to hit that metal peg in there. So that's something to keep in mind as we're working. So. There we go. So that should work. I'm going to drill my other one now, which is going to be here. Good. Just make sure I didn't go all the way through and basically make a pipe. I mean, if you want to make a pipe, you can, but that's not what we're doing today. There. So that's going to go in there once we get it plugged. I'm just trying to ream it a bit so it wants to fit in there, almost conular like. I think that should work. We'll just see if we can drift this in lightly. I don't want to go too hard before I'm starting to spread my split. As you can see this crack. I probably should have drilled on the other side of it. There. That should work. Okay. So, we're going to make up our 2-part epoxy mix. Alright, so we're going to spread out an even amount of epoxy here. This is when we mix it. This stuff really likes to stink. You just get a good even mix, and coat some around here. Coat some in here. Should be enough. Plop that there, and that's in there. Now, what we do is take this and we're just going to coat that all up in there. And I've decided I might actually stain this instead of coating it with epoxy. And then I can coat it later with epoxy if I really want to. Just trying to find my filed side. There, this side goes in. You want the straighter side out. That way it doesn't slide along your bullet and stuff. Kind of makes sense. So we're just going to set that there and drift this in. dear. Well, I'm going to let that dry, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run some epoxy into my split gap here. Unfortunately, it has started to spread a tad bit. It's not going to be the end of the world. This will still work just fine, but I don't want it to split anymore, so I'm going to coat it with epoxy, and that'll dry, sealing it all as one piece. And because I've started, I'm just going to go ahead and coat this whole thing. So I'm going to have to mix a bit more. And then when it's coated, we're going to stick it basically onto something like so, into something so it'll dry. And it will be actually quite shiny when it's dry. Show you the finished product. It'll be about 15 minutes from now. So yeah, I'm just going to continue on with this, and I'll show you when it's done. So there you go. There's your basic ball starter. Simple tool, and probably worth more than $5 if you ask me. Nice piece of cherry on it, but anyway, that will work just fine. I can always shorten this rod that I'm holding on to if I think it's too long, but I think it'll work just fine. So there you go, there's a ball start.